Episode 6. Jealousy, the fear of losing what's mine, the green fire beneath the smile. Jealousy is one of those emotions we pretend we don't feel, until it hijacks the body. It sits beneath the surface like a slow-burning fire. Possessiveness masked as protectiveness, fear disguised as logic, longing hidden behind judgment. Whether it's romantic or platonic, professional or personal, jealousy is often framed as weakness. But like all shadow emotions, it reveals a deeper need to feel chosen, secure, and enough. In this episode, we explore jealousy in its raw complexity, from childhood heartbreak to romantic trauma, gendered conditioning, and the comparison trap of modern life. We look at the cultural scripts around monogamy and emotional ownership, and how our attachments, both anxious and avoidant, shape how we experience jealousy. But we also ask, what if jealousy isn't just about fear of losing another, but about the fear of losing ourselves in the process? This is not about demonizing the emotion. It's about demystifying it, understanding where jealousy comes from, what it tries to protect, and how we can meet it with presence rather than shame. The first burn, early jealousy and emotional threats, reflection. My first memory of jealousy came in primary school. I had a deep connection with a girl I liked, and when she started showing interest in another boy, I felt this sharp, confusing pain. I didn't understand what I was feeling, only that it hurt. I felt invisible, like I wasn't good enough. That formative moment made me internalize a belief that love was tied to competition, and attention was something to earn, not receive naturally. Insight. Childhood jealousy is often the first sign that we perceive love as scarce. Without emotional guidance from caregivers, those feelings mutate into self-doubt. We learn early that love can leave, and that lesson becomes part of our emotional blueprint. Prompt. What early relationship taught you that you had to earn love or compete for attention? Possession and insecurity, the root of the fear, reflection. I've never tried to own anyone, but I felt small flickers of it. In subtle ways, a wish to hold on to someone who was slipping away. Not out of control, but fear. I've withdrawn, overthought, and questioned why I felt this way. I never acted out those feelings, but I knew they came from a place of insecurity. I've also been on the receiving end, where others felt entitled to my time and energy, ignored my boundaries, and made me feel suffocated. Insight. Jealousy often masks deeper fears, abandonment, invisibility, or feeling unworthy. Possessiveness doesn't always look like obsession. Sometimes it hides in quiet expectations or unspoken disappointment. Recognizing it means confronting where we learned we weren't enough. Prompt. Behind the need to possess is often a fear of disappearing. Romantic triggers, jealousy in love and attraction, reflection. In relationships, jealousy was rarely about others. It was about how someone made me feel unseen or replaceable. When a partner praised an ex or another man, I didn't feel rage, but a dull ache. Why would they need to say that to me? Were they trying to trigger something? When I opened up about my past, I was told I talked too much, and it was uncomfortable. But when they spoke of their pasts, it was allowed. The imbalance wasn't about jealousy. It was about the lack of safety to feel, process, and be heard. Insight. Jealousy in romance is rarely about the third person. It's about emotional security and whether the container feels safe. Projection and gaslighting complicate the dynamic, turning vulnerability into conflict. When we're not allowed to express, we begin to question our own needs. What if jealousy is just grief with nowhere to go? Gender, culture, and conditioning, reflection. I wasn't taught to process emotions, jealousy included. Society treats emotion like a weakness, and I believe that's intentional. If we don't understand what we feel, we can be manipulated. I've never felt that my gender dictated how I should express jealousy, but I've seen how cultural expectations, monogamy, loyalty, and toxic comparisons create pressure. I'm not jealous of others' partners or lives, but I've noticed a shadow emotion, a low-level ache that people can be cold, dismissive, and selfish, yet be rewarded for it. Insight. Culture trains us to see jealousy as shameful, especially for men. And yet we're surrounded by systems that encourage competition and comparison. The contradiction makes it hard to process jealousy healthily. We're punished for feeling something we were groomed to fear. Prompt. What cultural scripts shaped the way you experience jealousy? The comparison trap, social media, and self-worth reflection. At one point, I compared myself to others often. I'd see things that stirred old doubts. But over time, I became more grounded. I know who I am, I know what I offer, and I understand that what people show online is rarely real. I've never felt left out in digital spaces. Maybe because I know the masks people wear. There's always a mask online. We show the world what we're only willing to show. I remind myself of my value when those old thoughts return. I don't sit in that space anymore. I pass through it. Insight, jealousy thrives in comparison. Social media manufactures illusions designed to trigger insecurity. The antidote isn't detachment, it's inner clarity. When we know who we are, other people's lives don't become measurements of our worth. Prompt. You can't compare your wholeness to someone else's performance. When you're the target, being on the receiving end, reflection. I've had partners project jealousy onto me, often without cause. I remember a time when I was on a consultation call, discussing personal topics with a client. My partner became angry when she found out. She assumed it was something inappropriate. There was no trust in that moment, no space for my integrity. That kind of jealousy suffocates. It makes you shrink, not out of manipulation, but survival. I stopped sharing, not to hide, but to protect myself from being misunderstood. Insight. Being the target of jealousy reveals how fragile trust can be. Often, it has little to do with us and everything to do with someone else's wounds. But that doesn't make it less damaging. The pressure to prove yourself innocent breaks down authenticity. Prompt. When someone doubts your loyalty without cause, it reveals their pain, not your truth. Transmuting jealousy from fear to self-understanding, reflection. I no longer fight jealousy. I listen to it. I ask what it's trying to show me. Usually, it's a sign that I'm leaving myself behind, forgetting who I am. It's not about abandonment by others. It's self-abandonment. When I feel jealousy now, I come back to myself. Through nature, breath, stillness, and acceptance. I feel it and let it pass. I know who I am. Insight. Jealousy isn't a flaw, it's a flare. A signal that something inside is asking for attention. When we meet it with compassion instead of shame, it transforms. It shows us what we need, not what we lack. Prompt. Jealousy dissolves when you stop chasing and start coming home to yourself. Choosing self over shadow. Thank you for listening to episode 6 of the Unfiltered Human on the Fringe. In this journey through jealousy, we touched the raw edges of emotional ownership, insecurity, and fear of abandonment. We saw how early romantic wounds, unspoken cultural norms, and hidden self-doubt feed the fire of jealousy, and how often that fire burns us more than anyone else. We asked not just why do I feel jealous, but what part of me feels threatened, unseen, or unloved. We saw how jealousy can isolate us, distort truth, and damage trust, but also how, when met with awareness, it can become a mirror for growth. As with all shadow emotions, the goal isn't to get rid of jealousy, it's to relate to it differently, to see it not as a flaw, but as a flare calling us back to the parts of ourselves we've abandoned in pursuit of being enough for someone else. If this episode stirred something in you, sit with it. Let it teach you. Let it soften you. Let it show you the difference between fear and truth. Until next time, stay honest, stay open, and stay human. James Miller. If you found value in today's episode, you may also be interested in my broader project, The Inversiverse, a series exploring the hidden architecture of perception, identity, control, and consciousness. Across 20 episodes, the Inversiverse dissects indoctrination, language, media manipulation, dark psychology, belief systems, and the evolution of self in the digital age. You can find all episodes of the Inversiverse on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and Substack by searching this place called Earth. These ideas aren't shared to convince you, but to invite you to think, feel, and perceive more consciously in a world designed to keep you distracted. Overview of the Inversiverse, a journey through the mirrors of mind, culture, and control. Episodes 1 to 3 introduce foundational ideas around indoctrination, perception, and manipulation. Episode 4 explores how language, symbols, and cultural norms are used to shape thought. Episode 5 investigates control systems, media narratives, and the illusion of choice. Episodes 6 to 7 dives into collective belief structures and the psychology of mass behavior. Episode 8 focuses on marketing, control theory, Game Theory and Critical Thinking. Episode 9 covers love, relationships, human mating, gender dynamics, and red-blue pill ideologies. Episode 10 unpacks dark psychology, the occult, Satanism, and dark triad personality types. Episode 11 The Simulated Self examines identity, ego, and the rise of post-human consciousness. Episode 12 The Spell of the Mind inquires into language, illusion, and physiology of thought. Episode 13 Conscious Seduction, Journeys Through Persuasion, Propaganda, and the Unseen Forces of the Mind. Episode 14 The Myth of Sanity sheds light on madness, genius, and the edge of perception. Episode 15 The Algorithmic Mind probes influence, identity, and invisible architects. Episode 16 The Noise of Knowing reveals overload, obsession, and the age of infinite information. Episode 17 Belief Machines delves further into language, desire, and the engine of reality. Episode 18 Submerged Signals examines how the unseen shapes the self. Episode 19 The Alchemy Within Traces, Food, Frequency, and the Forgotten Intelligence of the Body. Episode 20 Encoded Flesh scrutinizes and opens up to the forgotten language of the body, DNA, and biological consciousness.